All right, so obviously I'm not here today. Um, I'm at home with a kid. Noah was exposed to COVID last week, so he is quarantining, and we don't have anybody to watch him today because it was short notice. I will be back tomorrow for the test. I will be there Thursday and Friday, um, so don't fear. Um, as far as what that means for you, well, it means you're going to have to kind of suck it up and get through some of this reviewing stuff on your own. It means you're going to have to be a little bit more responsible today than you have been when I've been out in the past. You're going to have to focus, and again, it's on you. So again, this is real world. You know what's expected of you. You know tomorrow you got a test, and I expect the scores to be good. I expect y'all to have studied, be prepared, and if not, just because you all come in and if you all bomb it doesn't mean I'm gonna make a really high curve. That's not how it works. Um, you got a really high curve last time. You're not getting as high of a curve this time. So you need to be prepared. And again, I don't think this one's as bad, but you know, so you've got three options today. Once I'm done giving in general instructions, here are your three options. One, work on the review. Two, finish the reading guides so that you can use them on the test or have them out and available on the test. Three, well, you know what? Those first two, those are really your only options. If you're going to do the progress check, you can do it at home on your own time. I want you reviewing during class, and if I see a lot of y'all start accessing the progress check during class, I'm gonna turn it off because I want you studying. I don't want you doing your English work or your math work or chemistry. I want you working on this. Okay. I will be doing a review via Zoom on I'll be doing a Zoom tutorial on at 4 o'clock this afternoon or tomorrow afternoon, and I'll open up the web tutorial link. I'll also be doing doing one Wednesday morning, and then advisory. You can come in Wednesday for advisory if you have later classes and study as well. All right, so what I'm going to try and do is just kind of go through the review, kind of point by point, and just make sure that I've given you something to think about, study. And if I get cut off, because I only get a 15-minute, this is a free service. I'm using Screencast-O-Matic. I only get 15 minutes. I may make a second one. If there's any questions about the review you don't understand, send an email. You can email me. I will have my email all day, but I'm not zooming in because I had to take a personal day. And, as much as I would love to work for free all my life, I'm not going to work for free today. So if you need something, you need to send an email. I will respond as quickly as I can. So, all right, here we go. So number one, how did new technology to Europe have an impact on the growth of maritime empires? Again, new things like map making skills, new ships. It's just going to allow them to reach further than they've been able to in the past. It's going to allow them to move beyond the Mediterranean basin, and it gives them the ability eventually to sail across the ocean and do it relatively quickly. More importantly, being the first to really kind of play around with putting cannons on ships is going to give them a ton of firepower, and what's going to allow groups like the Portuguese to set up trade post empires because they can roll into ports and say, "Hey, you do what we do, or we blow you out of the water." So just again, I think that one's kind of the one that we hit pretty well. It's not necessarily about knowing specific types of technology, but it's about knowing that new technology allowed them to go places, do more, explore more. So keep that in mind. Number two, how did the arrival of the Portuguese, Spanish, British, and Dutch impact economically, politically, socially, and culturally the Indian Ocean basin, China, Southeast Asia, and West Africa? So I'll kind of go through these point by point. The Indian Ocean basin, just the arrival of Europeans caused that major kind of shakeup. You looked at that graph today in class, the two charts. The Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia, Spice Islands, India, all of that's still there. It's all still relevant. But now instead of having that real peaceful kind of trade going back and forth, now once the Portuguese and other Europeans show up, it's all about them. They want to control everything. The Portuguese, they create that trade post empire early on. They're going to create forts and things like that along the coast of East Africa, along the coast of India, in some of the Spice Islands, so that they can become a part of the community, but more importantly, so that they can begin to extract wealth from all of the trade networks that are there. You pay them, or you pay them, or you don't trade. So you still have a lot of traditional merchants, but now they're at the mercy of the Portuguese in terms of doing business. That's the big, that's kind of what's going on there. You're not going to see a lot of conversion of Christianity in places in the Indian Ocean basin. They have more established faiths like Confucianism in China, Hinduism in India, Buddhism throughout Central Asia, Islam. You're not going to see people converting from those to Christianity. So the religion aspect isn't there, but you will have those enclaves of Christian merchants that begin to show up. Socially, again, in terms of the Indian Ocean basin, not a big deal. Politically, they are going to challenge the power of some of these long-standing established states like the Mughals, like the Safavids, the Ottomans, because they begin to take away some of the revenue streams, especially from the Ottomans, as they start taking away these trade ports throughout the Indian Ocean basin, throughout the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea. They start to kind of close off those avenues of revenue. So they are going to politically start hurting the Ottomans. That leads to that Omani rivalry with Europeans. The arrival of the Europeans in China, look, this is all about what the Chinese has and what everyone else wants. It's luxury goods, silk, porcelain, tea, those types of things. And because China's in a bargaining, they're in a strength of position, they're able to say, okay, you want our goods, you're going to come in and you're going to give us what we want. And so we start to see a global circulation of goods being fueled by access to the markets. Silver for luxury goods, whether it's going to Japan to get the silver like the Portuguese did and then bringing it to China and then getting it, whether it's going to the Philippines and dealing business in Manila, it's all about exchanging silver for luxury goods. And those luxury goods then go back to other parts of Europe and are sold there. Politically, they're not really going to impact China politically. China, the Ming Dynasty is pretty solid. Economically, they do, obviously, because of the expanded trade. They attempt to culturally, by the spread of Christianity, and what happens in China is it leads to those restrictive trade practices. The Chinese government doesn't really want to do business with a lot of European merchants because they're distrust of them, and so they begin to restrict trade to different ports. Southeast Asia, again, this is going to be a part of the Indian Ocean basin that first the Portuguese and then the Dutch are going to have a lot of influence in. It's all about the spices there, the cloves, the peppers, ginger, cinnamon, nutmeg. Those are some things you might see referenced at times. They're talking about the Spice Islands, and those all the Indonesian island chains. And the Portuguese are going to set up shop around the Strait of Malacca and be able to control access into the Indian Ocean basin from the Spice Islands. And so economically, politically, they're going to kind of run things. Again, not a whole lot of social or cultural impacts, but there are a lot of political and economic impacts. Eventually, they'll be replaced by the Dutch. And remember, the Portuguese and the Dutch, they don't set up shop, and they're not trying to control all the islands, all of the plantations. They're trying to control the trade. Their ships moving a lot of the spices, or their control of ships moving spices in and around the islands, into Asia, into India, things like that. West Africa, one of the big impacts here is it starts off, there early in the 1440s with Prince Henry, building that school of navigation and what that meant in terms of sending European ships down the African coast and including Africa now into European markets. Their search for gold, the beginning in need of slaves. The Portuguese set up a lot of those little trade post stops along the west coast of Africa that allowed them to extract, wealth, whether it was in gold, whether it was in ivory, and more importantly, become your slave trading markets, in the, from 1500 to 1800. So, all right, so there's two, again, I'm just trying to give you some things to think about. 3, what role did China play in the growing global trade between 1450 and 1750? How did they respond? Again, I think we've already talked about this a little bit. The key is realizing that for China, it's all about silver, and as long as they're getting silver, they're happy. Too much silver is going to be a bad thing, and that's going to lead to eventually that will lead to that will lead to economic kind of disaster. That along with a bunch of other stuff. Let's see. I'm gonna pause this for a second so I can think. Okay, when we're talking about China and their kind of growing global trade, also probably doesn't hurt here. I'm going to jump down here to number 10. How and why did interactions with the Japanese and Europeans change between 1450 and 1750? Again, initially they not trusted, but they allowed ships to come in and out of a couple harbors, and they were doing business with the Portuguese, then the Dutch. But because of their exposure to Western ideals, specifically to Christianity, you're going to see that influence of European merchants and missionaries in the Asian trade routes is going to become problematic, not just in China, but also in Japan. So much so that they begin to force them out. They begin to torture Christians. Again, they killed 10,000 of them that they refused to convert. And this, again, just an example that you're going to see attempts to limit, restrict, and isolate themselves. So again, the only real part of the world that you're going to see a spread of Christianity during this time period is in Latin America and South America, and parts of, in the New World. All right, let's go on. Let's try, okay, 4, what were major effects of the Columbian Exchange? Again, this one should be like the gimme questions, right? Spread of diseases, the impacts that they had, the spread of specifically smallpox, maybe malaria. Those would be the two, but smallpox is the big one. The foodstuffs, potatoes and corn going from Americas into the world, and that massive growth of population because they were high in calories, they were able to be grown anywhere. So you're gonna be thinking about that. Domesticated animals coming to the New World, horses. What did that do? It allowed for complete creation of new Native American cultures around horses. Think of like the Comanches and Native Americans and their use of horses. Foodstuffs, smallpox, cash crops. The introduction of cash crops is going to lead to transitioning the land that was being used by the Americas, by the natives for either hunting or foraging, maybe some, growing corn and potatoes. Now they're going to start using that land to grow those cash crops. Sugar is king. That's the biggest one. If you can't remember any other cash crop, remember sugar. The other impact of the Columbian Exchange is going to be that the demographic change, bringing slaves to the New World, and then bringing their culture, things like okra and manioc. Not manioc. Not manioc. That actually went to Africa. That's what it was. But they brought over okra. They brought over certain styles of their language, their culture, certain of their religious beliefs that are going to start to blend in the New World as well. There's a few questions about referencing Columbian Exchange stuff. So again, go back and look at your notes over that. Let's see. In what ways did Spanish and other Europeans alter America's politically and economically? Again, they turned what were functioning, empires like the Incas and the Aztecs into becoming kind of economically dependent states. They turned them into areas where they were mining. This is all about that transition of labor to the Mita system, to the coercive systems like the encomienda and the hacienda. They looked at this part of the world, especially Latin and South America, and it was all about economic extraction. It was about making wealth. How did European Christianity affect the Americas compared to Asian? We've already covered that. How did Spanish conquistadors change the makeup of Latin American society? Again, be looking for some questions about the casta system and how, referencing the Criollos or the Creoles that were those Europeans that were born in the New World, having lower class below the Peninsulares. Look at that casta system again. Peninsulares, the Criollos, the Creoles, that second level. Then your castas, your mestizos, your mulattoes, your zombos, your native Africans, your slaves. That's the general way that it went. I'm going to pick this up in a minute, but I've got to pause to start a new video because I'm at my 15-minute limit.